Hello everybody, this is Tech Hut, and in this video what I'm going to be doing is going over the computer build I did, and it is now currently my primary computer, and it is a video editing and content curation machine that I built for right around $1,000. So we're going to go over all the parts and kind of go over why I picked those, and while I'm going through this I'm going to also discuss some alternatives and maybe some things that I would have done differently. Now, first things first is the case. I went with the fan, I think it's Fantex Eclipse P400A. This is the RGB model. And I was going to do an entire review on this case, but this will basically be that review. In summary, it is an awesome case. There is tons of rooms. One of the main reasons I got it, it's a larger case, so it has a lot of room for, not external, but additional internal hard drive bays, so as needed I can use that as a backup and throw in more hard drives as I create more content and want to back everything up. So there's tons of room for that. It has a enclosed PCU area, so you don't have to look at the PCU, it all looks smooth. It's just one thing. The RGB controls are perfect. Some of the complaints I have with this case is that mesh right there on the front. The fan, that's the intake, so it kind of has this problem of collecting dust on it. So you kind of got to brush it off, but then if you brush it off while it's running, then you get dust on the glass on the inside. So that is a con. Another thing is each fan has about 3 different wires, so initially setting up this thing to work perfectly, to get everything in sync and everything plugged in right, was kind of a hassle, because you don't need to use one of the cords from each fan. Figuring that out was a hassle, and just the opening it up and seeing all the wires on the side was kind of overwhelming. It looks like as it should look with basically everything installed, but all it is various fan controllers and power supplies. But overall I'm pretty happy with this case. It performs good, it looks clean. The fan lighting is super cool. Everything syncs together nice if you use the right software. And moving on from there is the processor that I picked out. I did a whole video on this processor as well as the cooler that comes with it. It has been absolutely fantastic. Some of the most heavy-duty processes that I run on it usually are video conversions or rendering of large video files. For example, if I have a 1080p video and I render it out, it usually renders in full quality 60 frames per second at about double the play rate, so it's very quick, it's efficient, the temperatures stay pretty cool, especially with the stock fan. The stock fan itself, the Wraith Prism cooler, keeps everything super cool. It's about has the performance of a lightweight water cooling system. It's really nice. The reason I went with this processor versus some of these other ones is I know I wouldn't get the power performance out of some of these Ryzen 5s. It's substantially cheaper, but I want this system to last me quite a while. And the Ryzen 9 would have been nice, but I don't think it's worth the almost $500, depending on when you buy it, that it runs. So I went with this one, the 3700X. It's a good middle ground. I could have went with the 3800X, but for an extra almost $50, I didn't really see the benefit. I mean, it might have increased my render times by a couple seconds, depending on how long the video is. And I just don't think me not wanting to sacrifice a few seconds of time is worth $50 in the long run. From a video editing standpoint, it's absolutely perfect. If this was primarily a gaming machine, I would probably go for something like the Ryzen 5 3600. Even if I had a higher budget, I don't think I would go with one of these stronger CPUs. This is completely fine. And now that takes us on to our motherboard. This is the Asus Prime X570P. This is a mid-range board. You could get boards for like $80 for this processor, but this is best mid-range board that I found. I was thinking a while for getting this tough gaming one for $300, but after comparing the feature set versus the X570P for just about half the cost, I know this changed right here, but it's usually $149 right here. For the feature set for half the cost, I mean, the main thing that they boast is the Wi-Fi. You could get a Wi-Fi card for $10, and I just have it plugged into the Ethernet anyway. and so far it runs fine. I've had no issues with compatibility at all. The installation of everything worked completely fine. I'm currently using their Asus Aurora Sync. I will probably be switching to the Cooler Master software soon, but for what I do, I usually just have it on the rainbow transition, so the Aurora Sync seems to work perfectly fine for what I need it for. Looking at this, the Tough Gaming one, I mean, it looks cooler. It has a couple extra USBs, and it has the spot for the Wi-Fi antennas and a little bit better audio. But for what I was looking for, this is absolutely perfect. Now we'll move on to the graphics card. This is the full list of everything here and what I ordered everything for. So you can see I picked out the Gigabyte GeForce GTX 1650. This is the one thing that I'm kind of a little hesitant on my decision. Well, if I were to repurchase this, I would have thrown an extra $50 to $100 to get a better graphics card. I don't really do any gaming, and this card does work flawlessly for just general 1080p gaming. But the problem I ran into was I was using Adobe Premiere, and Adobe Premiere isn't too graphic card dependent when it comes to actually running the software. And lately I've been using DaVinci Resolve, and that software is very VRAM dependent on its performance, and I do kind of notice it if I've been editing for a really long time and things start to get sluggish, or even I had it crash on me once because of this. So after like 20 minutes, 30 minutes of video editing or so, I need to save it, turn off the program, turn it back on, and restart. And that is kind of annoying, so if it were up to me, I would definitely go with something with a little more VRAM. Like I said, spend an extra 50 or 100 bucks. But for what I do, honestly, it works completely fine. I'm not going to upgrade for a while, unless if that crashing continues or gets worse with DaVinci. Like some of the other components in this video, I do have a separate video just for this one, and I go over some of the comparing the benchmarks for gaming at different resolutions. It's a really good video, and I'd recommend you check it out. You can see on the screen right here kind of the test I ran to see the different performance in medium, high, low 1080p settings, and for 160 bucks this card actually did really well. So going back onto this page, we have the RAM, and this is, see, I lost a little bit of it. It's cheaper now, so buy it while you can. This is the G-Skill Trident Z Neo. Now right off the bat, I will tell you, you can get RAM cheaper than this, clearly. The main reason I got this, to be completely honest, well, I'll give myself a little credit. The main reason is because it's at 3600 megahertz, and this speed of RAM really complements the RYZEN processor. If you are going to get a RYZEN processor, I would highly recommend you go with the 3600 megahertz. And the other reason is because it's RGB and it just looks cool. It's the heatsink on it's thick. It looks really good in the system, especially when it's just sitting there going through all the different color effects. And I got the full 32 gigabytes, which for me personally, that's the most RAM I've ever had in the system. Usually I get 16 gigs, but I decided to treat myself and go with the full 32. So hopefully I won't need to buy RAM for a while. You can see here, if I open up Task Manager, just running a web browser with, I probably have like 8 tabs open right now. It is using 7 gigs of memory. I'm also running a video screen recording software. So I'm actually really happy I did that, because if I would have only got 16 gigs, I would have been approaching half of my RAM utilization just recording this video. So especially nowadays, you really should be going for that 32 gig, or at least get one 16 gig stick, so it's really easy to put a good amount of RAM in your system. So going back to this list, we have the SSD I got, which is the Western Digital Black. I got it with the heatsink for $99. Now when I purchased it, though without the heatsink, it was not on sale, so it was $99, but with the heatsink it was still on sale, so it was $99. So I went ahead and purchased the one with the heatsink. With this deal, I would purchase the $70 one, but I just got the heatsink because sitting in my system, it just looks really cool, and I do enough file creation and file rendering that I will probably benefit from that heatsink. Compared to something, Samsung makes really good SSDs. I wouldn't say this is the best one, especially for the money. You could probably get something slightly better. My very first hard drive ever was that I purchased myself was a Western Digital Black HD. I've never had issues with them, so that's why I went with this. It's super fast. My operating system probably boots in 3 seconds, if that. Going from hitting the power button to into the Windows login screen, it's just absolutely fantastic. And it's an M.2, and with the motherboard I got, it actually has 2 M.2 slots, which is awesome. So I could throw another one of these in here if I wanted to, or I could even keep this one and get a bigger capacity if I ever wanted to in the future. I got a 500 gig version. Let's open up my Explorer and see how much of this I'm actually using with all these different screen recordings and everything I have on here. You can see I'm about halfway, but I'm about to go and delete a bunch of raw files I don't need. I did get the 500 gig model with the intent on getting a terabyte later on, but until I start running into problems, this should be completely fine. And like I said, with it being the NVMe M.2, it's extremely fast. You can even notice a difference over SATA. It greatly increases my workflow, especially when it comes to video editing, and even doing screen recordings like this, opening up things like VirtualBox. It opens up in a matter of seconds. I could do a lot very quickly with this, especially partnered up with that RYZEN processor and the amount of RAM I've given the system. So going to the screen, we have the Seasonic Focus GX650. Now, as you can tell, I do not need 650 watts for everything I've listed so far, but I do have the intention on wanting to upgrade later on in the future, especially my graphics card, when I want to do that eventually. It is fully modular. I didn't need to do that, but I mean, it's pretty cool to be able to take out cords, and like, I'm probably only using what's absolutely necessary and one extra power cord for a spinning disk drive I threw in there. The spinning disk drive in my system is a, I believe it's a 1 terabyte. Yeah, it's a 1 terabyte spinning disk that I actually pulled out of an old laptop I don't use anymore, and I just threw it in there and with the near the power supply, so you can't really even see that it's in there. But it's really good for throwing video files and stuff that I know I won't be using often, but will be nice to have access to. So that's in there. That was technically free, but I'm not really going to count that in the list of this video. So the reason I went with the Seasonic brand is it was in my very first build. It's almost the exact same CPU as my very first build about probably 8 years ago or so. I also have a video on that, so you can check that out if you want to. You look over here at the price, it was not that much. It was about $110. I bought it through Best Buy, I believe, but you can also get it on Newegg. It's probably out of stock at that price. This was the very last component to show up, because with everything going on right now, power supplies are kind of on short supply. So do expect that going into building a computer right now, is there may be certain parts or components that you may not be able to get very easily, and this was definitely one of them for me. I remember I had all my parts sitting in a pile in the corner, and I just had 4 more days until that power supply unit was going to show up at my door, and that was not very much fun. But you can see here the reviews. It has almost 500 reviews with almost a solid 5 eggs. If I clicked on it, you can see there's hardly any 400 5-star reviews, a couple 4s, and even less 1s, which is nice. I haven't had any issues. I will probably never have issues. And if I do, I think that, yeah, there's a 10-year warranty, so by the time my warranty even expires, I'm probably going to have a new one. But we'll see. The power supply unit seems to be, especially if you get enough wattage initially, seems to be one of the things that you don't really need to upgrade hardly ever. It's probably the last thing you upgrade. If you build a whole system, it's the very last thing you need to even think about upgrading. That is if you gave yourself enough wattage. And that really concludes that. You can see if I go over here, and these are all the parts I ended up picking out. It is right about $1,000. If you have $1,000 budget, this is a really good starting point when it comes to upgradability, especially if you don't mind using a 1080p graphics card. If you do have a $1,200 budget, I would recommend going with a better graphics card. So for example, let's go ahead and actually go to this and check out what they have going on. I really like the gigabyte cards. So for example, like this GTX 1660, it's slightly better than the one I have. You scroll down, if your budget increases even more, so if you have, let's say, like $300 to spend, you could get something like a 5600 RX. Going even further down, you could get something like a 2070 RTX, And this one's cool because then you could actually like play the new Minecraft RTX edition, which seems super cool. But for me, this will work perfectly fine. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This was kind of more of a laid back style video. This is my current build and everything I have going on. I do intend on keeping everything how it is for at least the next couple months to a year, until I really need to start upgrading things like the graphics card and adding some more storage. But the core components like the motherboard, processor, RAM, and power supply unit, I'm not going to need to upgrade for, I hope, quite a while. So that about wraps that up. I hope you enjoyed this. Please check out all the footage in this video has been pulled from other videos, so a link to all those will be down below, as well as a link to my very first computer build, which is kind of the same style video that this is. But if you enjoyed it, please feel free to let me know down below. And if you hated it, you know what to do. If you liked it, hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell. I hope you have a great day, stay healthy, and goodbye.